Nero's fiddle. The most famous image in Roman history, an emperor making music on a rooftop while his city burns for 6 days. It works because a perfect villain spreads faster than a boring fact. And the historians writing decades later needed a monster. But the fiddle would not exist for another 1400 years, and Nero was 35 miles away in Antium when the fire started. The story comes from hostile writers like Suetonius and Cassius Dio, who claimed he sang about the fall of Troy while Rome glowed. What actually happened is stranger. Nero rushed back to the city, opened his own gardens to shelter the homeless, and paid for emergency grain. History remembered the song that never happened, and forgot the relief effort that did. Emperor Julius Caesar, say it out loud, it sounds completely right, and it is completely wrong. The myth survives because his name literally became the word for emperor. Caesar, Kaiser, Tsar. Every language on earth quietly promotes him. In reality, Caesar died a dictator of the Roman Republic in 44 BC. The first actual emperor was his adopted heir Augustus, years after the assassination. Later emperors adopted the name Caesar as an imperial title, rewriting his rank backwards into history. And the detail that seals it, Rome technically stayed a republic on paper even under Augustus, who never dared call himself anything grander than first citizen. Caligula's consul horse. The story goes that Rome's maddest emperor made his horse Incitatus a consul of the empire. It sticks because one absurd image of insanity is easier to remember than the politics behind it. But no ancient source says he actually did it. Suetonius only reports that people said he planned to. The tale was most likely Caligula's own dark joke, an insult aimed at the Senate, meaning its members were worth less than an animal. The part that kept the legend alive for 2,000 years is that the horse really did live in luxury, with a marble stall and a manger carved from ivory. Thumbs down execution. Everyone knows the gesture. Thumbs down, the gladiator dies. Thumbs up, he lives. The myth works because a single 19th century French painting froze it into the world's imagination piece. And Hollywood copied the painting. The Roman sources only ever say turn thumb without saying which direction. And some scholars argue a hidden thumb was the sign of mercy. The modern version was invented by Jean-Léon Gérome's 1872 painting Polis Verso, not by any Roman text, and the loop closed perfectly. The film Gladiator took its thumb scene directly from that painting. Art copied art, and the world mistook it for history. Gladiators fought to the death. In the movies, every match ends with a corpse on the sand. In reality, the arena was a business, and a trained gladiator was a fortune on legs. Most fights ended in surrender or a referee's decision, and starfighters survived dozens of bouts, retired, and became celebrities. The confusion has a source. Condemned criminals really were executed in the arena, and their fate got blended into the image of the professionals. But gladiators were so valuable they received medical care, special diets, and sponsors. Historians estimate that roughly 1 match in 10 actually ended in death. The Vomitorium. The legendary Roman room built so feasting nobles could purge and return to eat more. The myth works because a real Latin word with a disgusting sounding root collided with the stereotype of Roman decadence, and the two fused into one fake fact. A vomitorium is actually a stadium exit, an architectural passageway, not a symptom of gluttony, and no ancient text describes a purging room. The word appears around 400 AD in Macrobius, describing amphitheater corridors that spewed crowds into their seats, and the proof hides in plain sight. Modern stadium architects still call those passageways vomitories today. The salt salary, the claim that Roman soldiers were paid their wages in salt, supposedly the origin of the word salary. It sounds airtight because the etymology is half real. Salarium really does relate to sal, the Latin word for salt. But legionaries were paid in coin, and surviving pay records prove it. No source shows wages ever handed out as salt. The whole thing grew from one vague remark by Pliny the Elder, inflated by centuries of confident repetition, and the myth is self-recharging. Every time someone says a man is worth his salt, the story gets another life. The Roman salute. The stiff, straight-arm salute that films and paintings place in the hands of every Roman legion. It spread because once one famous artwork invents a gesture, later art copies the art, instead of checking the sources. And the sources are empty. No Roman text, statue, coin, or relief shows the outstretched arm salute. It is a modern invention. It was staged in 1784 by Jacques-Louis David's painting Oath of the Horatii, then amplified by stage plays and early cinema. The darkest twist: 20th century regimes adopted the invented salute precisely because it looked so convincingly ancient. Everyday togas. Picture ancient Rome, and you probably picture a sea of citizens in flowing white togas. The image exists because formal statues and history paintings only recorded Romans in their best ceremonial dress, so the costume became the uniform. In truth, the toga was heavy, expensive, and nearly impossible to work in. Daily Roman life ran on the simple tunic, the ancient equivalent of a t-shirt. Marble portraits, commissioned in ceremonial dress, froze the formal look for posterity. And the giveaway detail: some emperors had to pass laws forcing citizens to wear the toga at public events, because nobody wanted to. Rome fell in 476, the textbook date when the Roman Empire supposedly ended forever. It survives because timelines need a clean endpoint. Deposing the last Western emperor gives history books a tidy final page, but only the western half fell in 476. The Eastern Roman Empire ruled on from Constantinople for almost another 1,000 years, until 1453. The clean-cut ending was framed by Renaissance and Enlightenment historians, eager to declare classical civilization dead so their own age could look like a rebirth. And the Eastern Romans never called themselves Byzantine. To the very end, they simply said they were Romans. Vestal virgins trapped for life. Rome's priestesses of Vesta are remembered as prisoners, bound to their sacred vows until death. The myth works because the punishment for breaking the vow, burial alive, completely overshadowed the actual terms of service. In reality, a Vestal served a 30-year term and was then free to leave the order, keep her fortune, and even marry. The scandal stories of condemned Vestals were simply more repeatable than the quiet, comfortable retirements. And here is the reveal. Most Vestals chose to stay after their term, because the role came with wealth, honor, and legal rights no other Roman woman had. Christians and the Colosseum lions. The standard image of early Christians thrown to lions on the sand of the Colosseum. Centuries of retelling merged real persecutions and real arena executions into one specific cinematic location. But there is no firm ancient evidence tying Christian martyrdoms to the Colosseum itself. The executions happened, but mostly elsewhere. The link was consecrated by medieval and Renaissance tradition centuries after the fact, and that late tradition produced history's strangest rescue. It is partly why the Colosseum survived at all, preserved as holy ground instead of being quarried away stone by stone.